say yes to everything, you're actually not saying yes to anything.
Death was a real possibility.
Positivity by itself will not sell.
That kind of fucked me up.
When we first met Thomas and Ammar over 4 years ago, they had 760,000 subscribers centered around the yes theory, an ideology that believes the most enjoyable things in life are on the other side of discomfort. Their videos spread like wildfire, resulting in a global community of passionate supporters and believers. And in the last couple of years, despite many difficult challenges, their videos and their business have all leveled up. We've been fortunate to have a front row seat to their growth, having worked with them on a number of projects. Today, they have over 7 million subscribers, employees around the world, a thriving apparel brand that sponsors its own athletes, and they recently announced a feature film that they are funding via their community with NFTs. We spoke with the guys about their evolution from YouTube channel to full-blown media company. And in an effort to seek some discomfort ourselves, throughout the conversation, we pull random thought-provoking questions from their new card game, Spark. This episode is sponsored by vidIQ, but more on that later.
This is the first question I pulled, and it's really relevant because we're sitting across the table from each other as two duos. The question is, what's something every couple should have in their relationship if they want it to last? Colin and I are going on 10 years of working together. You guys are what, 7 years? Yeah. 7 years of working together. So I'm curious now, as you guys are expanding, and the growth is getting big from where you started, like what's the answer to this question? What's everything every couple should have in their relationship if they want it to last? As business partners.
Like really good thumbnail?
Good title. Good thumbnail. Yeah. Business model that works.
That actually becomes the least of your worries.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The first thing that came to mind was shared values.
Yeah.
But, I think there's a lot of different things. Enjoying getting energy from doing the same things. And I think bonding over wanting to get out of our comfort zone as a way to grow. And then the shared value and belief that being outside of your comfort zone does bring you that growth. Yeah. I think immediately we didn't need to convince each other that was true. And so since the beginning, we've believed that, and it's still true to this day. And we actually continue to rediscover new meanings of seek discomfort. Every year, it means something different to us personally. There's like the adventure side of it in the videos, but then there's how we're seeking it in our personal lives that evolves and that has evolved throughout the years.
I think like the answer to the question, like when I look at that for us is, and when I hear you guys talk about it, is just this authentic alignment. Like to actually be creative partners and business partners, you actually have to be aligned, and you have to have regular check-ins to be like, are we on the same page?
Yeah. I think too, though, it's about having a mutual respect and empathy for the personal change. Right? That like there will be a time through the cycle where Samir and I probably feel very different about being in the cycle.
Yes.
I'm plugged in, I'm tuned in, and maybe Samir wants to explore a different side of the business. And we have to communicate through that. And I have to respect that if he wants to do something different, if he declares, I don't want to be in edits anymore, and that's final, then you have to be like, okay, like that's important. That is key to the longevity of our brand, I respect that and that he respects the way I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have experienced a lot of that too.
For me, seeking discomfort this year is quite different. I'm trying to slow down a little bit, be more intentional with my decisions, how I live my life. And that's actually out of my comfort zone because we've been going so fast that I didn't need to slow down and think too much about how I was living my life. And now I'm trying to slow down. I've been living 10 years abroad. And so I'm asking myself, okay, do I want to spend more time in Europe with my family? I miss speaking my 2 native languages of Swedish and French. These are weird questions that I actually haven't even allowed myself to contemplate. And so that's like a new form of seeking discomfort, of opening up. I had this idea of like, I'm in Venice, we're doing videos. This is the way that we do things. We travel all the time. There's no clear structure to my schedule. And now questioning that is a strange new form of seeking discomfort that I'm living right now.
And I think that's been the most enjoyable, fulfilling part, is to see how seek discomfort as a life philosophy is actually like self-repairing.
Yeah.
You can never get to a point where that becomes like you've put that on autopilot, because you do what we do, and we've gone on hundreds of adventures where we've done some of the most extreme things. So now actually those things have become our comfort zones, and we have to ask ourselves like, okay, now that we have asked strangers to do the most ridiculous ideas that you could think of, and actually have been able to figure out ways where we can make that happen. Like, what is the next frontier? how can we empower ourselves, and so that we don't get sick of it, or it just doesn't become this like gimmicky thing that, oh, you're the guys that seek discomfort, but actually like I'm not even uncomfortable in our videos anymore.
And I think what's really interesting is when the first time I was talking to you guys and came across the brand, I remember it was described to me not as a YouTube channel, but as a ideology or like a philosophy. And I thought it was really interesting recognizing in that moment that, oh, the YouTube channel is a vehicle to express the ideology, but it is not the thing.
The reason we're a YouTube channel is because Thomas has always just been interested in YouTube. He took a class at, in university about it and started this channel. And then, as we met in 2015, we ended up all together and we started Yes Theory. But by doing it through storytelling and through content, we're actually able to access the most amount of people that we could have possibly accessed in that like time period of 2015 to 2022. And now we're actually able to build all these other tools that we might have that we initially wanted to build before with a lot easier now, because we have access to also the bigger group of people that have the shared aligned values on what is it that they want to get out of life.
It was really interesting because when we talked to Mr. Beast, when we talked to Jimmy, he said that when you're like a creator, what the biggest mistake creators make is that they start to diversify too early. Like they're making videos and then all of a sudden they get a ton of opportunities and they start 100%. To engage in all of those opportunities, and the videos don't do as well. He said, if you focus on making the best videos possible, the world unlocks, but you actually have to focus on that. Yeah. And I think that's what we're witnessing with you guys right now, where you went from, you could have stopped at 1 million subscribers and been like, cool, now we'll open up the doors and, but you're still in the cycle of making excellent YouTube content.
I mean, that's thanks to Thomas and this, the YouTube part and anchoring and making sure that the nucleus of, the main vehicle that helped us start everything is always healthy and alive, always came through you. So you must have also had a completely different perspective.
Well, it's interesting what you guys were saying about what Jimmy said, because we actually made that mistake in 2017 when we hit 300,000 subscribers. We were like, cool. We actually started working on a card game. We started a production company. We tried to do merch and do it ourselves. And we tried to start 4 or 5 different projects, and our content really took a hit.
Yeah.
And we had multiple partners in these different businesses that were, friends and people we'd met and connections. And then at one point we just looked at all of this and we were like, on a day-to-day basis, we're actually spending less and less time on videos. And so we shut down all of those projects, and we had to tell our friends and people that have started working on these businesses that, listen, this is not, we need to focus on the videos and really go in on that. And that was a huge inflection point for us. Literally the moment we made that decision, a month later, we went from 300,000 to 600,000 and then to 1 million within, another month. It was just exponential. And so and then the crazy trap becomes that we were then afraid to get out of that cycle because it immediately paid off, right? And we noticed that when we do get out of that cycle, things do get a little, more wavy. And so now it's just about reinforcing a bit more process than we've been used to in the past, which is seeking discomfort for us, actually having more of a plan so that we can actually make these decisions to work on things outside of the videos without compromising the videos.
The world of YouTube is moving in this direction of heavily focused on, title, thumbnail, retention, data. How much does that impact what you guys are doing? With even thinking of an idea of going to Afghanistan or Iraq, you're putting the experiences first, it feels like, or the story first before. But how much do you think about how it fits into the world of YouTube?
We think about it quite a bit, but it's never been the driving force.
Right.
And we've broken a lot of rules constantly, and I think sometimes at the expense of performance, but we're at peace with that because for us, what matters more is being able to look back at it in 20, 30 years and be like, okay, cool. We made decisions that had integrity and we felt like we could sleep at night. We didn't feel like we totally sold out and try to just push the algorithm and start a video, screaming or whatever. It's
start a video screaming.
You also want to make sure your videos still retain value, because I feel like sometimes if you follow the algorithm too much, you can come up with an idea that has no value and doesn't necessarily make sense. I created the world's biggest pizza and then delivered it to someone here and then did that. And you're like, well, why? Yeah. For what purpose outside of a thumbnail?
Right.
Yeah. And I think there is a bit of, because we didn't start making videos for the sake of making videos. And I think there are people going on experiences, but you can tell it's only for the sake of, it's a good title and thumbnail. Whereas for us, what sometimes also makes it difficult is are we actually interested in this experience at all is important to us. And we're trying to also use the videos to be a vehicle for our own growth and self-development. And so it can't just be a random idea and title. And whenever I see it as a bit of a dial, right? Like you can dial it up to 100 of like optimization and title and thumbnail, caring about that. And then you can go down to 0 and like really just want to do this experience or this creative project. And I think it's about finding a good balance. But whenever we've turned the dial a little too much, I think we all have different comfort levels with it. But whenever it turns up a little too much, it feels wrong, right? And even our audience, I think, over time starts to feel disconnected, because I don't think that our audience is necessarily also the same that watch like other mainstream YouTubers. I think our audience is quite different. I've noticed that they're even getting older. People that recognize us on the street are getting older and older. Like I don't think I've been recognized by anyone under the age of 20 in a long time. And so I think people react to different things. And when they see that we're trying to play the game too much, some of the comments are like, don't play the game, guys. Just do your thing. We know you didn't care about this video, and those are the comments that sting, when they're right.
The true ones are the worst.
When it's like, you didn't care about the video. And so now it's just like bringing it back to making videos we enjoy doing, the creative challenges that we feel inspired to do. And then making sure we're cognizant of like why people subscribed, and, understanding how the platform is working and changing and evolving, but not letting that be the guiding principles for why we do what we do. Because as you said, otherwise you're going to end up filming things that you're like, this is just a good title, but I have no idea why I'm doing this. It makes no sense.
Success in this world is just an opportunity to do more of it.
Yeah.
So if you don't like what you're doing, and then you get an opportunity to do more of that, you're still not going to like it. Yeah. So you have to actually get yourself into a place. And even like this show, I think you guys even know over the past 5-6 years or however long we've known each other, having a conversation has been the most exciting thing that we've had with creators. Yeah. And we've done this long before we had this show. Yeah. And so then making this the thing we do is like, if we get more opportunities to do this, that would be amazing. So, and there were some videos we were making where they would get 1 million views, and we were like, we don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that. So don't give me an opportunity to do that. Although that then becomes your opportunity. So creating your day, your life, your opportunities, like you can make your own situation.
Mm-hmm. I think if you don't feel like there's purpose behind your work, at some point you might, hopefully, you would get to the realization of like, only thinking about growth or how, the AdSense money or whatever is going to get old. And you're going to get to a point where you're going to have more money than you need. And it's going to be like, what? Okay.
So what now?
What now? Yeah. What is the point of anything that I've done to this point? Right. And you've seen some creators burn out because they get there. Mm-hmm. And so I think always thinking about what is the meaning behind what you do, even if it's, you're a comedian and your purpose is you love making people laugh and you love people, making people feel like present through this experience of joy and laughter, like that's fine, right? But I think it's just about being connected to that and knowing why you do it is important.
Makes it easier to get a 10 out of 10 in YouTube Studio.
Yeah, because
if you said it, at least the value is there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As many people didn't see it.
No.
As many people. But
I also think a lot of entrepreneurs and creators don't take a step back to say like, what do I want in my life? And if you like write it down and then you, even from a monetary perspective, be like, well, how much does that cost? And then like, am I cool once I get there?
Yeah.
It almost like creates this situation of like, well, answer the question, like what's enough?
Somebody asked me a question recently that really got me thinking, and I still haven't found the answer, but he asked me like, when you picture yourself future success, whatever that is, even if it's like, it doesn't be monetary, but just what does success like of a great life look to you? And then, maybe it's like sitting with your partner, watching the sunset, and you have a dog and you're on the beach or whatever. Think about that feeling and how could you get it today and feel those things internally without those external stimuli or stimulus around you. So how could you find that inner feeling that you are seeking in the future, that you are trying to achieve through this future idea of who you'll be within yourself? I thought that was got me. That kind of fucked me up. You know, I was like, I don't know. You know, like
Colin is uncomfortable.
Because I think
I was going to call it at Spark.
I think sometimes the disheartening, maybe not disheartening. Sometimes at least the disillusion that I had was that hitting 1 million subscribers or 2 or 3 was going to give me a certain amount of joy or confidence, and it didn't. And then you kind of end up being like, well, what do I do now? You know, and then the only way to actually find that inner sense of confidence and fulfillment is from within you. And it's the most like classic quote you've heard 1 million times, but actually living it and experiencing it and realizing it on your own is a whole other experience. You know, there's one, like you can understand something intellectually, like theoretically, but then to apply it within yourself is a whole other. And I think there's often a gap there between I intellectually understand this, but then to really internalize it is a different exercise. And I think for me, you know, growth has become less interesting because I've realized it's actually not giving me that much more fulfillment. As long as we're able to operate at a scale that we feel is going to allow us to spread the message to as many people as possible. And at this point of our careers, we're producing work that we're proud of and people are still resonating with it, then, you know, then I'm good, right? Like I don't need more, like 10 million subscribers is not going to make me feel better about myself, especially if it's not getting there in the way that I want to get there, right? And as you said, like if you get 10 million views on a video you didn't want to make, people are going to want you to make that video again. And you know, so it's like you're much better off being intentional from the start. And I think that's something that you have to constantly check back in on.
What's the craziest idea you guys have lined up for this year, or that, you know, you think you want to do this year?
I mean, the idea that I can think of that is that transfers year by year because it's just waiting for the right partner, the right opportunities to go to space. I'd like to go in a pod to prove that the Earth is not flat. To just go up
That's
and
the main mission.
Right?
That's what this whole thing's been about.
And feel like for us, like the most ultimate, like impossible dream that for the first time in history is actually kind of accessible is to go to space. It's the idea is still missing something. I don't think it's just that one of us would go to space.
Right.
But it's a good framework to be able to take a message and put it out towards a lot of eyeballs that are going to be paying attention. It's like, it's going to be one of those moments like, now that we've got your attention, and then we need to figure out what do we want to put behind it, because it is pretty amazing to have the opportunity to go to space, but it's a pretty privileged thing to do. So we want to make sure that like there's just something very real behind it.
I love that. And I actually want to ask you to explain something. You one time told me about hiding the vegetables. I'm curious if you can explain that concept.
100%. Hiding the vegetables is like one of the core principles we have for how we tell stories, which is, you know, you give someone a plate of broccoli, they're not going to want to eat it. But maybe you will. I don't know.
He eats broccoli every night.
Oh, you eat broccoli.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roasted. Yeah.
Sorry, I roasted your diet.
Yeah.
But the hide the vegetables idea is basically, you know, the wholesome and the intentional and kind of important premise in the story is a little bit hidden. You know, when we used to 2016, 2017, we'd do these videos that were very positive and the thumbnail
inspirational.
And like, you know, helping a mom for, you know, Mother's Day, and like nobody clicked on it, you know. But now instead of thinking about it that way, you know, we might come up with an experience that is more outward facing and feels more flashy and interesting, and helping the mom would be a part of that experience. But it's not the title and thumbnail. It's the intentional and you know, caring part of the storytelling that is super important to us. If we feel like the video doesn't have any vegetables, it feels like it lacks that deeper level of connection that I think our audience has gotten used to having when they watch our videos. And so I think it's a really smart thing to think about as a creator, you know, and because I think there is a level of needing to be mindful of your ideas that you distribute to the world for people to be interested in watching them. And if you're only distributing vegetables, I think you can build an audience, but they're going to by default be a lot smaller. And once we figured that out, like our growth and everything changed.
Positivity by itself will not sell. Goodness on its own will not sell. So how do you actually take these things that are the core of what we do and make it more consumable to an audience of someone that might not care?
So on this topic of you kind of always pushing the boundaries of what the brand is doing. I have a question that is teed up. What is your moonshot, a dream that is so big it scares you?
Oh, wow.
In the last 7 days, our channel got 4.5 million views. Our audience is most active at 9 a.m. Pacific, and our Mr. Beast interview is currently averaging 1,300 views per hour, closing in on 10 million views.
And we know all of this because we use vidIQ. When you log into vidIQ, you can get information about your channel's performance, you can get keyword opportunities, analyze your competitors like the NHL, and even get new ideas for your channel.
One of the coolest parts about vidIQ is the AI title generator.
So if you have a video and you're trying to figure out a good title for it, all you have to do is put some terms in the title box and then click Get AI Title Recommendations. And then vidIQ will actually come up with titles for your video. vidIQ does have a free plan, so you can get started today. But here at Colin and Samir, we use the Boost plan.
And with the Boost plan, you get unlimited title recommendations.
And if you click the link in our description, you can actually get 50% off of 2 months of a Boost or Pro plan.
As a creator, you work alone a lot, so using vidIQ is like adding an extra creative team member to help you make some of those decisions.
vidIQ is trusted by millions of creators, including ourselves. So click the link in our description, head to vidIQ.com/ColinandSamir and get started today. You get 50% off. Come on, that's half.
What, do you not like 50% off?
That's half, Colin. All right, back to the episode.
I would like for Project Iceman documentary to win an Oscar at the Oscars in 2023.
In 2023?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next year.
So let's
Can you give us some background?
give us some background on this documentary.
When did this start? What is
project.
it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So in November of 2019, we were in London about to board our flight to LA. And I remembered this guy that I had FaceTimed with a few months before because people had been DMing me saying, this is the younger, better looking Iceman. I was like, wait, what are they talking about? And I go to his profile and his name is Anders Hoffman. He's Danish. And he had in his bio that he wants to do the first ever Ironman in Antarctica. Basically, he wanted to show the world that limitations are perceptions and that, the ordinary can achieve the extraordinary. So we ended up at the airport completely changing the plan. And I told Matt, we've always wanted to sponsor someone with Seek Discomfort. Taking a page out of Red Bull's book and, with all the amazing things that they get to sponsor and the dreams that they get to support, we, wanted to have a similar experience to that. So we ended up meeting Anders, completely blew us away with just the commitment that he had put into the project, the foresight and knowing that this is a story that has the potential to inspire the world and being so adamant on capturing it so well. For him he was a business consultant who quit and decided that that's what he wanted to do. So we ended up offering him a $15,000 sponsorship to help him with the expedition to Antarctica, which was happening a few months later. And the conversation continued with Anders, as he was setting up for expedition. We just realized that there's such huge potential if he's able to do it, if he's able to come back alive, that story will be just absolutely incredible. And
Big if.
Yeah. I remember when you called me about this project and that if was real.
The if was the biggest.
That if was real.
Yeah.
That they had to travel to Antarctica is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And death was a real possibility.
The most possibility in anything that we've ever done or been involved with. And that the thing is that the decision here wasn't Anders is going as a Seek Discomfort athlete. There's so much on the line. If our first ever experiment with wanting to support a dream and dreamers and all that is to send someone who was gonna go die on Antarctica. But that's that's the part that I think I've learned to trust myself with. Just there's a certain quality of that you can feel in a human and how much their why drives what they're doing. I knew that Anders would go to Antarctica and there would nothing that stops him from doing it, but he's also not gonna come back a dead man.
Remember when we just would throw a dinner at a stranger's house, guys? Remember that time?
Was that so wrong?
Was that so wrong? That was one of the first videos we ever made together. Let's what about
let's go back to that.
Throwing a dinner here in Venice and inviting fun people. And Or, send a guy to Antarctica and potential death looming over his head.
You just never want to risk that headline that starts like, these YouTubers, You just want to steer clear of that.
Yeah. But
luckily, Colin is going to be the second person to do the Iceman in Antarctica.
Exactly. So that's the big setup for the sequel.
I can never tell even if you're joking or not. Immediately my heart rate is like, are they serious? Is someone about to kidnap me?
Yeah. We have talked about kidnapping you.
I know.
Right.
That's why this fear
We
is
have
real.
had brainstorms.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Palms are sweating.
But yeah, I mean, this time,
Yeah.
2 years ago,
That's right.
Anders had just finished the race on Antarctica, and he was after the realest confront with death that you can imagine, and footage that will perfectly reflect what that was like.
The footage is incredible. The story is amazing. And where is it today? Like, where's this movie?
Oh, that's a great question, because that was a whole Iceman on itself. Like the process of actually coming back, the team coming back with the footage, which, I mean, by the way, they arrive to Europe on March 14th, 2020, the day of global lockdown. So you can only imagine a group of guys that spent 40 days at the edge of the world coming back to a shutdown world. Right. And we thought what made the most sense in that point in time was to actually take the project to market and pitch it to every single streamer out there. Project had, I mean, obviously, like, all these executives were just blown away that we had a team on Antarctica days before the world shut down. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, how the industry was here during 2020. So much appetite for the project, all this like positive feedback. They couldn't believe that the footage that we came back with, because like they have tried to send teams before and they know just logistically how insanely impossible this is. We end up getting a catch with arguably the biggest streamer in the world, and we went all the way, about a year and a half of negotiations and going back and forth. We end up getting a deal for $1.25 million for the film to be made and to be distributed at the highest level. But, very, very quickly, particularly after the first production meeting that I, sat in on, it was just very evident that is not a process that will lend itself to actually making the film what it deserves to be. There was just too many people in the room. There was too many opinions, and too many people who aren't even invested as every single person up until that point was. And that was like a non-negotiable for me and for all of us in this, that we end up completely saying, like, you know what? We will figure out a way to do this ourselves. We have the most amazing community that has always stood behind projects like this and to really push the envelope in what we do creatively. And we just said thank you, which was a whole process by itself because the money was in the pipeline already.
Thank you is a short way to describe what it took to walk away from that. Thanks.
It's not gonna work out anymore.
Yeah.
and we decided to see what's available to us to actually be able to put out the project in a way that is true to the ethos of the very thing that stands for. Limitations or perceptions. And maybe we didn't think that we could make the film without a big big check behind it, but we had to really push against that and realize that no, there's, with Web3 and with NFTs and on the technology that is available right now, you could actually make this happen.
I think it's one of the best decisions you could have made, like, because what makes you guys different is the fact that you have built yourselves in a different way, a community-backed way. Yeah. And even with the films that you've put out in the past on YouTube, there was, the first one went out for free. The second one was pay what's fair.
And went out for free after that.
And then went out for free after that.
Yeah.
And the support has been there from your community. So to do it any other way would actually not be natural for how you guys have done it.
The people that are the 10,226 people that, will have bought the NFT that will fund this film, there will always be this like special relationship that, that they will share with Yes Theory, and being the first group of people that have, believed in this so much that they actually put their money in it. But we want the sense of value in the project to be derived from the actual thing that will come out. And that's the very real, tangible thing that people will get out of, this NFT, a film that will be in theaters and on YouTube in 2022. If this works, the potential is endless with what we can do with the S theory and actually continuing to build these tools.
And I also think for other artists and filmmakers to be able to fund projects using NFTs is a much more grassroots way to offer value and distribute art.
Yeah.
You know, that isn't reliant on, you know, this red tape of the classic distributors that actually do have the funds and do get to make the decisions on the bigger projects, because you do eventually hit a ceiling of how big you can go.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to need someone to cut you a check. And if you're able to work instead directly through, you know, like the excitement of the community that comes from the ground up, I think it changes the game for any artist out there.
Totally.
To be able to go out and create the art that they want to make.
I mean, I think this is really exciting. And obviously the project's live right now. So you can click in our description and check out how it's going. The project is live, but it's like,
that's actually crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Right? On that note, I'm pulling another question from Spark. What's something you're battling right now that I can't see? And I'm going to answer it first. I think something that I'm battling in this moment is the ever-present fear that all of this will go away. That we've achieved a dream that we've always wanted, but we might not be able to hold on to it. And I think as creators, creating with fear is really, really dangerous because of what it does to your decision-making. And so something that I'm battling with right now is our recent growth and the fear of not being able to sustain it, or this not being a long-term career.
That's mine too. The fear of me personally not being able to handle the career that I'm building for myself. I can feel it when I sit here that like sometimes I'm nervous, I'm not completely comfortable. But it's always worth it in the end. I enjoy it. I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy putting out the videos. But that it's okay to not be 100% comfortable in what I've chosen to do. That hopefully I'll get more comfortable over time. And I have, right? Like when we started out, it was very uncomfortable. So it's getting more comfortable, but there are still internal battles with my level of comfort with this job sometimes.
Do you think it's a confidence?
Yeah, definitely.
Or is it like
I think it's like, it's sitting here from a place of assuming that all three of you are like very confident. But I don't know.
I mean, sometimes we'll be mid saying something, we're like, holy shit, I have no grasp of where I am and what I'm saying right now. And I'm like, it gets tricky sometimes.
But sometimes like we'll even have guests on our show, and like you guys and some other guests we've had where I'm like, well, of course you should be being interviewed, but should I be the one interviewing you? Which is a strange feeling because you're working every day to build this house. And then you wonder, am I going to be in it and thinking, I'm actually not up to this challenge.
Spark.
That's deep. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like a lot of probably YouTube creators feel that way because, I mean, how many creators have existed on the platform for more than 10 years? Like not that many, right? That are still top healthy of their game and healthy and like look happy, you know, damn, you know, there's not, so I think it's also, we're going into unknown territory because YouTube hasn't existed for that long. So we're some of the first creators to really build sustainable careers out of this. And so there isn't like a blueprint that you can look at and turn to and be like, here's how these things can happen and fall into place. You know, I mean, even last year, you guys felt it, like the space completely changed. It's like, okay, now this is a completely different opportunity in a good way. But you know, you couldn't have predicted that the year before. So I think it's constantly adapting to this changing world. And then, you know, I guess in that way, also not letting the numbers to get to your head too much.
Which is really hard because it's like the metric of validation at some points. But I would say that one of the things that combats this fear for me is the team that we're building. And the guys in this room, the full team that we have, because what happens is like when something doesn't go well, right? When like an episode doesn't do as well, or
I scream at everyone.
Colin just goes nuts.
Dictator Colin. We all know that guy.
But when an episode doesn't do as well, we look at, you know, I look at it as almost this level of, it's not necessarily on one person, right? Or it's not on us, or we as creators are not inadequate. We come in and say something in our process was broken. And that process is representative of the whole team. And so we get to then sit down together and say, let's reflect on that. What did we miss in this process? And then let's build the process again. When it was just us, that was really overwhelming. When it was just Colin and I, and we were sitting there like, well, this is not going well, and the process is just you and I trying to edit videos. So
we did something wrong.
We are, and I think
now we can just say they did something.
Yeah.
It's all Jesse.
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you guys, like we hear a lot about, we see the adventures, we see a lot of this expansion, making a movie right now. The Disney map is expanding, right? There's a clothing brand that exists almost on its own. There's a card game that's coming out. There's a book that's being written. Like the Disney map is expanding. What does the team of Yes Theory look like? And how does this whole ship operate?
I think that's a great question. Much like you guys, expanding our team has actually, and empowering them also, has been like very revitalizing. We recently, something you helped us do as well, hired a head of operations. We took a bet, of wanting to try a different structure. Yeah. Most creators have a manager who works typically on a handful of other, clients as well, and takes commission. And for us, what was the way that we've always looked at Yes Theory is this is a company. We're not talent that then has the business structured outside of the entity. And so, the direction and the bet that we're taking is, can we build out a more traditional looking, media company with operations person, eventually marketing and partnerships and all of these things that are inside of our building, that are on salary and that are incentivized in other ways. And then instead of having, a more traditional management setup.
I think what's amazing and what's sort of maybe different about our different channels is that you guys in all of your videos trust people. Like that's like the basis of the videos is like, can I trust a stranger? Can I trust someone else? And that to me carries through so much to how you've built your company, whether it was starting Seek Discomfort or where you are now with hiring a head of ops, that like it also is trusting people. And I think that's something that you guys have been doing for a long time.
How has your experience been with building a team? Because I think a lot of creators who are getting to this point, they know like, oh, I should build a team, but hiring and managing is like a whole other world, right? It's a whole other skill set, especially for guys who are traveling constantly.
I think, that was a huge challenge for us last year. As you expand, as you hire editors and producers, the amazing thing is your time opens up, but now you end up being in a position of needing to manage these employees, right? Like you can't they need to know what the plan is, what the schedule is, what the deliverables are. It was much simpler when you just had to figure it out, with a handful of your friends and you live together and you're constantly in touch with what's going on. And I've heard a few creators struggle with, okay, I hired all these people, they've taken so much off my plate, but now I feel like a manager and it wasn't what I wanted to do in the first place.
Right.
I know that Ryan Trahan let go of a lot of people because it got too complicated. He ran into the issue of he became a manager and he was like, I don't want to be a manager. Yeah. I want to be a guy who makes videos. So now he stripped down his operation so much that it's way simpler and he's actually,
he's on a rocket ship now.
He's on a rocket ship. He's never done better, right? Yeah. So I think it's important to, if you are going and scaling in a direction that you don't feel is actually what you want to be doing, and your job and what you do on a daily basis has completely shifted, to reconsider and make sure the direction you're going is really where you want to go. Right. Because I think it can get easy to, as you have a YouTube channel that's growing to fall in the idea of, oh, I have to do this and now I have to do that and I have to hire this person. And I don't know, I think few people actually stop and wonder, do I really want to build an empire right now, or do I want to just make videos, like keep it simple and enjoy myself and have an impact at the scale that I'm at. And for every person, the answer is going to be different.
But I think a more general / practical piece of advice would be probably that focus on hiring the person who's going to hire.
Right.
Like if you are seeking this expansion, then make sure that you're not just hiring a bunch of people and completely disregarding the fact that they will need your time and attention to figure out how they're going to set up the things that they work on. So, for us, being more strategic about, the person that we just hired is going to be responsible for a lot of the hiring that we're going to be doing down the line.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. That's a really great point. And I think also though, like for me as a person who considers themselves an entrepreneur, someone who really enjoys the business side of YouTube, I find it near impossible right now to do both sides. And to the point where I'm recognizing that I need to lean all the way into the videos. And we need to unlock that side too. Because I think as creators, like your job is to be the creator. If that's what you really enjoy doing. And I really do enjoy the process of being a creator. And you do a little bit have to choose. It is super hard to go straight out of a meeting into a brainstorm or out of a tense conversation into deciding on a thumbnail.
Do you feel like you were hiding in the business?
Yes.
Because I feel like you've definitely unlocked a new part of yourself that where you're like the uninhibited, like full in, all in creator.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I was terrified that if I tried to be the creator, I would fail.
Yeah.
And that I just wanted to lean on what I could be in this world.
Because you were like, if you guys knew these guys' numbers, like their monetization, they were some of like the best monetized. Because obviously, like, you know, both have business backgrounds. They've sold a company before, and that was their bread and butter. So they knew how to make a very good living out of having less than 100,000 subscribers.
Right.
So, but it's almost now it hit me. I was like, wow, maybe you were just going so hard on that because
100%. I was terrified, right? Like there's so much insecurity around failing as a creator because it's also incredibly public.
Yeah.
You're not failing behind closed doors. You're failing in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Too. I think I internalized a lot of that you didn't want to be a part of videos.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's just like not a future for Samir. So that's just not what he's interested in.
Right.
Is how I took it even though I knew that the business side was like incredibly important and that I was not going to I did not have the chops to like build that side of the business. I could help and support. So it was necessary, but I think I internalized it in a way that probably wasn't even true. Necessarily.
Spark.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like that's really important as a creator. Like you're not getting the validation from you're confused where you're supposed to get validation from. And for me, it was either going to be through viewership or dollars in the bank account.
Yeah.
Those are the only two places I could understand validation. Whereas today as a creator, I can look at it and look at the way I look at validation and if I'm fulfilling this dream is actually just what my day looked like at the end of the day. Did I look back and have fun doing this thing? Because like we all chose to do this because it's fun, because it's fulfilling to tell stories, because it's exciting to tell stories. And when you look back at the day and you're like, that was the dream day. Like even this right now, we're sitting together and talking about creativity. This is the best thing. This is the thing I want to do. So if I walk away at the end of this and I'm like, that's amazing, and I'm supporting this lifestyle of doing that, then that is fulfillment. And I think that gets really confusing on YouTube. What is it? Is it the dollars? Is it the views? And both right now at this moment in time in YouTube basically have no limits. The amount of viewership you can get, the amount of dollars you can make on YouTube, it almost has no limits. It's just like this ever expanding universe.
It's just your time that's
just your
extremely
time,
capped. Because I'm sure you guys have this too. Opportunities come in every day. There's a million things you could be doing. Right. And it's just on you to choose it's a wonderful place to be. Like it's a very privileged place to be like, let me choose my path, my future. But then it also like, it's on you to hope that you enjoyed it and to assess and like check in with yourself.
Such an unnatural process for the brain too. All of that happening all the time. And I mean, as we started off by talking about the toxicity of just like the space of being a creator right now, and like you're giving a ranking from 1 to 10 every freaking video that you're posting. And you're constantly reminded that you're 10 out of 10.
And that makes it feel like it's objective.
Yeah.
Like this is an objectively bad video or this is an objectively good video, where actually creativity and all of this is subjective.
Yeah.
You could also be extremely excited about the impact of one of your videos, even if it had less viewership, right? And I think like valuing that is so important.
For context, Creator Studio gives creators on each video that they post a ranking and it will tell you like, 20% less viewers chose to watch your video.
Found it less interesting.
Found it less interesting. Like sometimes I'm like, what is that language? Who's fucking doing this copy? What the hell?
Found it less interesting.
100% of people think you suck as a creator.
Your career is over. Try again.
Have you had that doomsday feeling ever of like, okay, cool, this is all over?
Oh yeah,
a few times.
Okay, it's like it is such a fascinating feeling as a creator.
Yeah.
It happens to me like more often than I'd like to admit, of someone who like does a lot to try and keep myself in a space of like, what I just talked about, that like if my days are fulfilling, then I'm happy. But there's days where I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like this was a sham. Like we're imposters, right? Like we aren't actually, this shouldn't be happening to us. That like doomsday feel of like, it's all over.
Yeah. Because it's hard. There aren't other ways to measure, to quantify the quality of the video outside of numbers. That's the only way we figured out really how to measure it. And you can try and read through the numbers and see the impact and maybe read comments, or maybe some people come up to you on the street and mention that specific video, but we don't have great other ways to measure it. And I've definitely felt that way. When you have a couple of really low ranking videos back to back, that's hard.
Super
and then
hard.
especially when you did put a lot of effort and care into the video and it doesn't click. What you said about the process is something we're trying to shift as well. We were initially starting the year with, should we have views as a success metric internally, that we try and benchmark how well a video did. And we decided not to go for that. And instead think about, did we do all of the steps of the process really well, right? Did we do the thumbnail really well? Was the title and premise, the why behind the video very strong? Did we feel, like connected when we were filming, were we present? Like, are all of these boxes ticked? And I think that's a much better thing to measure, because that you can actually control, that you can actually improve and change in the future, right? Like if the video didn't do well because you didn't really take the time to work on the thumbnail and it was a bit rushed, that is an easier thing to swallow than like, okay, it didn't do well. We don't really know why. And maybe people don't want to watch our channel anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's much harder.
It was a good run. It was a good run is a thought that goes through my head all the time.
I'm like, unbelievable we made it this far.
I just wanted to add that, even though our channel is called Yes Theory, learning how to say no has been like the most important lesson we've had throughout.
That's like
the
my
years.
year. This year is like dedicated to learning how to say.
If you say yes to everything, you're actually not saying yes to anything, because you're not prioritizing anything really in your personal life as well. And we had a friend who said, when you do say no, you say no here, but you say yes to yourself. And I think we talked about that as well. Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful thing to remember. And I think Ammar's always been very clear with that, right?
Yes.
Like making sure that there is a deep sense of integrity in each decision. And saying no to something doesn't mean it's the end of your career or end of your life, or necessarily this relationship is over. You're just, showing that you respect yourself and your own intuition further. And Ammar's always been pushing us. And
I came across this on Spark. It says, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And I immediately thought about one time we had dinner in New York and you said that exact same thing to me, and you did the thing, this thing. Yeah. And you say no here, you're saying yes here. And I was like, wow, from the yes guy, that's good advice. Like that's good. The power of the no, I think is really important, and actually practicing it. Like there was a piece of advice that I got as well around like write out a email response of how you would say no. So that you already have, it's not overwhelming when someone asks you to do something, and you can think about how to say it in a thoughtful way of like, I am focusing on this project right now. I would love to do that, but it's just not in my, time. Like I'm not being an asshole to you. I need this time for myself.
There was just something that hit me that I feel compelled, because like, as you were saying that and you were, giving me credit of being able to do that on a business level or on an organization level, I actually feel like I've been doing a terrible job doing that in my personal life. And this is why it's like, this is a big moment of shifting for me, where I'm learning how to say no rather than not respond. It's like, you had a question, the question of like, what is something that you're working on in the background, or
what's something you're battling that we can't see.
It's basically figuring out how to not just completely like abandon my communications with friends and learn how to say no or decline an opportunity, because of just like, it feels like it completely gone out of control. And it's interesting that like I can, on organization level, I'm like able to do it, but on my personal life, I'm actually really bad at that.
Yeah, I think that starts for a lot of people probably within the confines of work. Like I remember hearing that you, Thomas, sometimes wouldn't go to certain speaking engagements or events, and that you and Matt would go. And even you doing that gave me sometimes the ability to say to myself, okay, I don't need to go to everything. I don't have to be. Maybe there's a better place for me to be. And it starts in work. And then I think it illuminates it, at least for me, I illuminated in my personal life that I also was just sort of like saying yes to things out of guilt to go to make that person happy to be at that thing. When really I don't think I want to be at that thing. I want to have that time for me. But the next step is communicating that. Because I definitely don't always do that. And they probably assume that guy doesn't like me.
Oh my God.
But that's not the case. Like, I just don't want to go to that specific thing for any other reason that I just want to be with myself for some other thing.
And I think all of this is like, it requires practice. And that's the thing you don't think about. You don't think like, should I practice saying no? You know, should I write it out in a Google Doc and just see what it feels like to write a text back to someone right now? You know, it's like, it's such an important thing, especially when you are doing something like we're all doing, trying to bring a dream to life. Like, you need that time for yourself a lot. And you do have to say no every day. It's like, it's terrifying. It's overwhelming. That's the plot
twist of yes theory. It's actually more about learning how to say no. It is.
It's funny to even check in with you guys now and talk as if this is, like the beginning of your next 7-year chapter.
Yeah.
Because it still is early. Like, I just had a vision of us at like 55.
Right.
100%.
Fuck yeah.
And
Yes, Colin.
who knows at that point what we'll be talking about.
A couple of Oscars behind us, you know?
I think you did it as a joke, but we at Svalbard, somebody asked like, oh, is it about the journey or the destination? And you said the company. And I think it's actually...
God, that is such a good line. Yeah.
That's really good.
That just...
that just...
Can we just
off the dome?
That hit me in the stomach.
Yeah.
Can you put the?
We were all joking in the context, but afterwards we're all like, damn, that was actually
say that
really
again.
good.
That's really
Say that again.
deep.
So Ammar brought this when we were in Svalbard. I think somebody asked, is it about the journey or about the destination? And we were actually discussing this, and he comes in out of nowhere and just says, it's about the company. And we were like...
Because the journey can suck ass.
Yeah.
But if you have the right company, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
Because you're gonna...
Yeah.
Oh
my God, guys, that is
I gotta show you
insane.
this from the video.
Oh man, I need to like take a second and walk outside.
That's insane. That is so good.
Doing this strange thing of YouTube and having good company with you guys as close friends makes it so much more fulfilling and exciting.
I totally agree.
If you enjoy the journey, you will enjoy your life.
Wait for it.
It's neither. It's about the company.
Wow, that's so good.
That was all of our reactions.
So good.
We were like kidding, but then we're also like, wait, we should post that on Instagram. That's actually pretty good.
You gotta post that on Instagram. That's so good. All right. Amazing. Now that you've dropped that bar, I feel like, unless you have something else.
Are we even
about
still
to come
recording?
out,
I don't even know.
Unless you have something,